All right, today we are diving deep into Quorum. This is the blockchain platform that wasn't built for crypto hype, but for the serious, high-stakes world of global business.
So let's just get right to the biggest question, shall we? You've got these massive public blockchains out there like Ethereum, right? So why on earth would a company like JP Morgan, a financial titan, bother building their own from the ground up? What was the problem they were really trying to fix?
Well, it really boils down to this one major conflict. See, businesses are super excited about what blockchain can do. The shared, unchangeable record of truth. But, and this is a big but, there's a huge problem when you try to just slap the public blockchain model onto the corporate world.
And this is where you really see the mismatch. Public blockchains, they're all about radical transparency. Every single transaction is out there for everyone to see. Anyone can join the network, and the transaction costs, what we call gas fees, they can be all over the place, totally unpredictable. For a business, it's a complete nightmare. They need the total opposite. Ironclad confidentiality for their trade secrets, controlled access so they know who they're dealing with, and costs that are predictable so they can actually create a budget.
And this, right here, is exactly where Quorum enters the picture. It was literally created to be the answer to this problem. Think of it as Ethereum, but re-engineered from the inside out, specifically for what big businesses need. And it was all born right inside JP Morgan.
So what is it, really? Well, Quorum is an open source, and this is the key word, permissioned blockchain platform. The two most important things to remember are permissioned, which means it's an invite-only party, and based on Ethereum. That means it gets to use all the power and tooling of the world's biggest smart contract platform, but for a private, corporate audience.
And its backstory, it gives it some serious street cred. It was created by JP Morgan way back in 2016. Fast forward to 2019, and they're already using it for their own stablecoin, JPM Coin, proving it's tough enough for high-stakes finance. Then, in 2020, the blockchain software giant Consensus buys Quorum, making it the crown jewel of their whole enterprise strategy.
Okay, so that all sounds great, but how does it actually do it? How does it deliver on these big promises of being super fast and super secret? To get that, we've got to pop the hood and take a look at its architecture.
Quorum's whole design really stands on three main pillars. First, it's a permissioned network. You can think of it like a private club where you know every single person at the table. Second, it has privacy built into its DNA, letting people make transactions that are totally invisible to anyone not involved. And third, it gets its high performance by using a much faster voting-based system to agree on what's true.
And just how high is that performance? We're talking hundreds of transactions every single second. A lot of the real-world uses we see are humming along at about 200.
Now, to really put that number into perspective, let's compare it to public Ethereum, which chugs along at about 15 transactions per second. Quorum isn't just a little faster, it is playing in a completely different stadium. For things like huge bank payments or complex supply chains, that difference is, it's everything.
And here's another thing that's a total game changer for business. It gets rid of gas fees. Public chains need gas to stop spam, but that creates these crazy, volatile costs. By just removing them, Quorum gives companies the stable, predictable costs they absolutely need to operate.
But the real secret sauce, the most brilliant part of all of this, is how Quorum handles privacy. It uses something called a dual-state database. Now, the best way to picture this is to imagine a public town square, but it has a bunch of private, totally soundproofed rooms. Everyone in the square can see that, hey, two people just went into that room to make a deal. That creates a public record that the event happened. But only the people inside that room have any idea what the details of that deal were.
And the source material just puts this perfectly. This whole dual-state system, it's not some clumsy workaround. It was a core design choice from day one. It lets Quorum give you the security and proof of a blockchain while keeping all the sensitive business stuff completely under wraps. It's really the best of both worlds.
Okay, that's the theory. But is anybody actually using this stuff? The answer is a huge, resounding yes. So let's shift gears from the how and look at where Quorum is making waves out in the real world.
And the use cases are just incredibly varied. You've got the obvious one, JPM Coin, moving massive amounts of money between banks. But then you have LVMH, the luxury goods giant, using it to track their high-end products. You've got entire consortiums in insurance and agriculture running on it. And then there's this. JP Morgan and GoMSpace used Quorum to pull off the world's first ever bank-led tokenized transaction between satellites in orbit. Yeah, it doesn't get much more real-world than outer space.
Now, Quorum is incredibly powerful, but it's not the only player in this game.
to really get the full picture, we have to see where it fits in the pretty competitive enterprise blockchain market.
So its biggest rival is Hyperledger Fabric, which is backed by the Linux Foundation. And the key difference really comes down to their DNA. Quorum, as we know, is an evolution of Ethereum. It uses the same popular smart contract language, Solidity. And that gives it this huge advantage because it can tap into this massive global army of Ethereum developers. Fabric, on the other hand, was built totally from scratch. It uses different languages, which gives it a different kind of flexibility.
And if we look at the market data, you can see that, Hyperledger Fabric currently has a bigger slice of the pie when it comes to developer mindshare. Now, this doesn't mean Quorum is losing or anything. It just shows you how competitive this space is and that different companies are picking different platforms for different jobs. Quorum's real superpower is its deep, deep connection to that huge Ethereum ecosystem.
And all of this brings us to one last, really crucial idea. The things that make Quorum different from public blockchains, the controlled access, the lack of total decentralization, those aren't flaws. They are 100% intentional design features. It's all about solving what we can call the enterprise trilemma.
So this trilemma shows you three goals that are always competing with each other. You want high performance, you want strict privacy, and you want full decentralization. Public blockchains, they sacrifice a bit of performance to get as much decentralization as possible. But Quorum, it makes a very different, very strategic trade-off. It says, we are going to unapologetically prioritize maximum performance and absolute privacy, because that's what businesses actually need. And it achieves that by running on a more controlled network of known players.
And that really leaves us with one final and, I think, pretty provocative question. For the business world, is that radical anyone-can-join decentralization of public blockchains a must-have feature, or is it actually a bug? The incredible rise of platforms like Quorum suggests that for a lot of the world's biggest companies, the answer is becoming very, very clear.